Howdy ladies and gentlemen, Poltra here with an Age of Magic video, and in today's video we're jumping into a Melaine spotlight video. Melaine is the latest hero to be released, pushing a faction past its 7 faction limit. She is a wild elf hero, and straight off the bat, the only thing about this setup that I wish was changed a little bit was that she was part of 2 factions. I don't see why it couldn't be done. I'm sure it just would require a little bit of coding, but I really wish she was part of the Wild Elves and the Knights of the Council faction, because her whole setup, her synergy is to work with both of those factions. So it would be nice to see her work with both of them officially. But she is a Wild Elf, she is a melee damager. We'll go over her stats, her abilities, and look at her animations. We're not going to do any battles with this hero. I'm going to come out and say straight up that this hero, don't expect it to be breaking any metas. This hero is still currently a mid-tier hero. It's being released in the mid-hero range, and it is kind of important to know that, because with Clan Wars soon approaching, we are going to have to start revisiting how to beat old teams with old teams. Simple as that. We're going to have to figure out how to use the Wild Elves again. We're going to have to figure out how to use the Dragonkin again. We're going to have to figure out how to use the Elves again. We're going to have to figure out how to use all these teams, what beats what, because with Clan Wars, every team is going to matter. So to have a hero come out to boost up the strength of one of those old factions and keep them relevant in the mid-tier game, it's important to know. So, we'll go over her stats. At fully maxed out, hit points come in at 17 million, speed 248, armor 277k, magic damage resistance 254k, basic damage is 871k, critical hit chance, which is by far her most important stat, is 49%, which is really important to note. Remember that when going over her abilities, because this champion has the potential to do a lot of damage with almost guaranteed crit chance. And her crit damage is 3 million. The more in-depth stats are here to use how you see fit. Feel free to take whatever information you need to and use it however you want. It's all yours. There you go. So we'll jump over, look at her abilities, and just talk a little bit about the hero. So let's get into it. Jumping into the arena, we have Melaine's basic attack, Heavy Blades. Performs a melee physical attack on one target. If the target is slowed, she attacks again. Chance of critical damage from the attack is increased by 50%. Awakening, damage is increased by 100%. If the target is slowed, lowers their initiative by 70%. So we'll go ahead and look at the animation of the attack now. We'll use it on the last Ramfit. She'll dash across. And yeah, it's a Ramfit. Doesn't look like a lot of damage, but the ability itself does have the potential to do a lot of damage. With the guaranteed 50% crit chance added to it, along with her crit chance is very high. And I think there's another skill she has where her crit chance is influenced. So if the medallion for her ever comes out and you want to boost it up, I think crit damage itself would be very, very valuable for this hero. But that's a basic, nothing crazy, potential to do a lot of damage depending on the situation. Moving on to her second ability, we have Elven Protection. Removes 1 random debuff from all allies for every allied Wild Elf or Knight of the Council. Has a 20% chance per allied Wild Elf or Knight of the Council to block casting of debuffs on allies for 3 turns. Has a 20% chance per allied Wild Elf or Knight of the Council to prevent all allies from reducing initiative for 3 turns. Awakening this skill removes all marks from allies. For every mark removed, increases initiative of allies by 20%. So this is a very, very interesting ability. We're going to go ahead and look at the animation of it first. So we'll, yep, there we go. So dashes across. Oh no, it's the support ability. So I actually really, really like this ability. What I like about it the most is the awakening version of it. The ability to remove marks and gain 20% initiative per mark removed. Now, marks are one of those things in the game that are so solemnly talked about. There are very few cases where marks actually make a difference in fight. There are lots of heroes that actually use marks. Their impact in battle is not something you ever work around, which is a shame. Marks at the beginning of this game were very, very important. There were some fights where it was the mark that made the difference, and they've just kind of fallen off. I think they just keep them around for the sake of keeping them around. But to have a hero specifically benefit from having marks is really nice. It's really nice because, and I'm not saying there isn't, there's just nothing that comes to mind specifically. You find that a lot of heroes that apply marks, they normally are heroes that deal AoE damage, or it's an AoE ability. you apply the mark to all of the enemies. I mean, most obvious cases are Tristan. He can apply the mage mark, which is triggered by Librarian, can do huge damage. There is the mark from Valar, an AoE ability, which then supports the Rougarou. There is the mark that can be applied, and this is back in the old days, back in the old days, and this is just off memory. There's Worm Priest who could apply the mage mark, which then would be triggered by Rock. Again, that was huge. Oh no, it was the other way around. It's one of the interaction that one of them triggered. It doesn't matter. Point is, you find that a lot of marks are applied by abilities that deal AoE damage or are AoE based, which again puts the mark on all characters. I'm not saying there aren't characters out there that can apply a mark through single target abilities. I just cannot remember one off the top of my head. So yeah, that's really nice. And it's an awakening that I think you can choose to do when we start finding out what this team or any team with Melaine in it can beat. Now, she is a mid-tier hero. You're not using this hero or this team to beat anything top tier. It's not beating Chaos Spawns, it's not beating Goos, it's not beating the Cloud Wanderers. It's just not. It's not a hero designed for that. It is a mid-tier hero. But in saying that, with Clan Wars coming around, mid-tier heroes, even low-tier heroes, you're going to have to figure out how to use them. So if there is a team that can come around and you can use this hero to beat them, then it is an advantage to you. It's going to help you. And yeah, like I said, it's going to take a little bit of testing though to find out what teams can beat what, because we're going to have to start considering all the possible combinations of teams to beat. So I really like this, and there's a lot of protection in this ability as well, protecting yourself from debuffs, and you can prevent allies from having their initiative lowered as well. Up next, we have Steel Fury. Removes all buffs from the target and one more random enemy for every other allied wild elf when under the council. You're playing her only on that team. I cannot see her being used in any other team other than on a team with wild elves or none of the councils. So you are removing buffs from 5 targets. Simple as that, and I think that in itself is very powerful. Performs a melee physical attack on all enemies. Chance to deal critical damage is increased by 10%, and amount of critical damage is increased by 12% for every buff removed by this ability. Awakening this damage is increased by 100%, and then speeds up Melaine for 50% for 2 turns. This is one of those few abilities where the damage increase on the Awakening may be very much worth it. This ability has the potential to do huge damage. When you're running her on the full team, 100% to hit all enemies, remove all their buffs, and then do damage based on that. That's what I'm saying. You don't need crit rate on this hero if medallions come out. It's just crit damage. Focus on crit damage and attack damage. She would do... I would love to see. There would be some cases out there where I know she's just going to absolutely tear through the enemy. So let's go ahead and look at the animation of the ability. I wonder what we will get, because there are buffs on these Ramphits, so... be interesting. They are very tanky heroes. Yeah, not huge, but like I said, they are beefed up here. They are probably one of the tankiest units in the game. So not a beautiful demonstration, but I mean, we got rid of all the buffs. That's huge. Getting rid of all those taunts. You're never versing 5 Ramphits. Unless it's a raid node or something, a special node. Yeah, when are you versing 5 Ramphits? But yeah, there is the potential. When I was testing this hero against what teams they can beat, there are some. At the moment, they can beat Dark Elves, which they could not beat originally. They can beat the, what do they call, the Renegades. Actually do quite well against the Renegades. This ability can, whew, it's just like, wow, okay, calm down. Calm down. We're just here for a good time, not a long time. But yeah, pretty decent ability, I think. And like I said, with the Awakening, I think, yeah, it's just that 100% crit chance that you've got on it. Potential 100% crit chance. And then the boosted crit damage as well. It's really, really neat. Her leadership ability is Iron Tread. Maximum HP of all allied wild elves is increased by 25%. Damage taken by other allied wild elves is reduced by 20%. And for allied wild elf defenders by 40%. All damage dealt by other allied wild elves is increased by 60%. Melaine and allied wild elf defenders gain permanent provocation. Enemies can only attack heroes with this effect. Awakening this, every time an allied wild elf performs a support attack or counter attack, the allied wild elf with the lowest current HP restores 20% of its HP. So very interesting ability, leadership ability, and personally, I'm not the biggest fan of it. I do love that it increases the strength of the Wild Elves, but I really wish it had some benefit to the Knights of the Council as well. Now, in saying that, are you really using her over Tristan as a leader for the Knights of the Council? Probably not. But in a team like this, where you're trying to build in the Wild Elves with using support from the Knights, it would be nice to get that boost in them as well. Because yes, the Knights of the Council are by far not the worst faction in the game, but they're also by far not the best either. There are many now above them. They had their time in the spotlight, and that has diminished. So I don't see there being harm in having them a little bit boosted as well to support the team and its synergy. I would have liked to have seen that. I think that would have been really, really nice. But in saying that, you can now run a full Knights team, and you can now run a full Wild Elves team that is now a little bit boosted. So you're going to have two teams to work with. You'll keep your Knights, you'll play the Wild Elves if you want to, and this is going to support the full Wild Elf team. And the healing thing is really, really nice when you consider Gloriana. You're not running Gloriana as a leader in this team anymore. You'll probably run Melaine as a leader, and that severely weakens Gloriana. So having an ability that can now heal her, because she cannot heal herself. It was one of the biggest downfalls of the healer at the time. She could not heal herself. But in saying that, she was hidden. She couldn't be targeted, I believe. I think that's how she worked. But she needed to be in the leader spot. That was her leadership ability. So now she's going to have a little bit of I guess, support now being taken out of that role. Finally, we have Melaine's passive Elven Knight. Each time Melaine takes damage, she gains 1 stack of agility. Every stack of agility increases the chance to perform a support attack on a target attacked by another ally. If the ally attacks all enemies, a random target is selected by 30%. Increase support attack damage by 50%. 1 stack of agility is removed with every successful support attack. When Melaine has 3 or more stacks of agility, they are removed along with all debuffs. Melaine's initiative is increased to 100% or restored to 100%, and she gains mastery for 2 turns. With mastery, Melaine no longer attacks or stacks agility, and damage taken from physical attacks is reduced by 90%. Melaine performs a guaranteed support attack by agility rules, but all such attacks are 100% critical, and critical damage itself is increased by 70%. So she almost becomes a tank when she gets mastery. Damage is reduced by 90% on her, and that builds into her being able to gain the provocation along with Colonel if you choose to use him, or Siegfried. Siegfried gets provocation anyway. Fewer stacks of agility are required to activate mastery. The physical damage that Melaine takes in this state is reduced even further. When mastery is activated, all allies gain coordination. For every ally with this effect, damage dealt is increased by 20%. The buff dissipates after the damage had been dealt. So yeah, it's really hard to control coordination, but if it hits on the right target, whew, you can take someone out quite easily. So everything you see on the screen, her actual ability, that is the awakened form. So the damage reduction, the agility stacks needed, they will be lower, or you will need more, because yeah, like I said, these are the awakened stats and requirements for the ability. So yeah, I think she has the potential to do a lot of damage. It's going to be very interesting to see how people start using a full Wild Elf team. Like I said, they're not going to be meta. It's not a meta thing. She is a mid-tier hero. But like I said, with Clan Wars on the approach, you're going to have to learn how to use mid-tier teams again. So throw Melaine into one that's probably a bit further down on the mid-tier list. And giving that squad a little bit more boost, it's going to be a little bit interesting. It's going to be fun. She's a fun hero. I think there's going to be some situations where you use her and you're really going to enjoy her. But as a priority, yeah, just remember, you're not breaking anything at the top tier with this hero. Just remember that, okay? But there you go. There is Melaine. I personally do like how they've built her. There were just some things in her leadership I wish they added, and that was to deal with the Knights of the Council as well. And to be honest, I think it would have really been nice to see her gain the Wild Elf and the Knights of the Council faction trait in her description, and not just Wild Elves. That way you could use her in a Knights team if you so wanted to do so. But there you go, there is Melaine. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment below. I will answer it to the best of my ability. Wherever you're around the world, until next time, please take care of yourself.